Hey, Internet! Welcome to a very special episode on the Spector Creative channel. Well, special in the sense that, one, it's going to be about Superman. I haven't really done too many episodes about Superman. I've covered a lot of superheroes and a lot of toys, and there's really not that much new news to talk about Superman. Well, I mean, there's, some new controversies and what's going on with the current writing and all of that. But I'm more interested usually in history of things and the origin of things. And, well, now is a good time to talk about that. Why this night and is different from all others? Well, it's Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah to my Jewish subscribers and viewers out there, and happy holidays to everyone. So why is Hanukkah a time to talk about Superman? Well, it's a time to talk about Jewish superheroes. That's kind of a good transition, and there are quite a lot of them. There's, good significant representation, shall we say. And, well, there is a lot of evidence and a lot of interesting history behind Superman's connection to being Jewish. And it's not just, Jerry Seinfeld and his personal love for Superman and, having Superman kind of show up in a lot of episodes. But, well, there actually is a lot tied into his origin. Now, obviously, Superman has changed a lot over the years, but quintessentially, he has remained very similar to how he was when he was introduced in the late 30s. S on the chest, red cape, red underwear on the outside of his outfit. And his very first issue, which really introduced the modern concept of superheroes, is part of pop culture itself. It sells for more than any other comic, and it's been spoofed and recreated and used by different superheroes over the years. I mean, heck, Mattel even made an action figure set, a Hot Wheel with a non-articulated figure for Comic-Con that recreated the cover as a toy, and there's nothing cooler than that. All right. So how is it that Superman is Jewish? I mean, we don't see him celebrating Passover, and we don't see him lighting the Shabbos candles the way, other Jewish superheroes like Ben Grimm do or Kitty Pryde. Well, we have to look at the secret origin of Superman. And, of course, there's the public origin. Everyone knows. It's really become part of pop culture. Superman is raised by the Kents on their farm in Kansas. What could be more American than that? Dorothy came from Kansas, after all. And this is because Superman was rocketed there after his planet was destroyed by the Death Star. Now, looking at the creators of Superman, Joel Shuster and Jerry Siegel, they were both Jewish. They were both the children of Jewish immigrants who had come here from Europe. And a lot of the experience and a lot of their Jewish upbringing really went into the creation of Superman. And that's kind of what I want to talk about because it makes an interesting YouTube video, but it really shows the Jewish influence on comics. And obviously, it's been well documented that, a lot of Jewish writers and artists were working on comics in the 30s and 40s. And the sort of communal history of Jews both immigrating to America in the first half of the 19th century, as well as there's very much part of the Jewish identity, the family sacrifice so that children can have a better life than their parents, if you will. And this wasn't just something that was tied to Jewish immigration to America in the early 1900s, but really for hundreds of years it has been an ongoing part of the Jewish identity. And especially when you get to the 1930s, where Jews could not safely live in Europe because of, the German takeover of much of Europe, that was a motivating factor for a lot more Jews to immigrate to America. Now, obviously, Jerry and Joe had already come to America. And looking at Superman as a religious metaphor, one thing that also has to be addressed is obviously the similarities to the Christian Messiah, Jesus. And this comes up a lot, and it's absolutely rightly so. Superman is looked at very much as a savior figure who, comes down from heaven, down from the skies, and, helps save the world over and over again. So it's completely legitimate to look at Superman as a Jesus metaphor. And even if you look at the 1978 film, Superman arrives on Earth literally in the Star of Bethlehem. his ship is, what was the guiding light that brought the wise men to, on the nativity. But it can also be very much said that Jesus is much closer to another biblical character, that being Moses or Moshe in the Hebrew. Now, Moses and Jesus are both really very much, linked thematically as lawgivers, as saviors. But particularly, the origin story of Moses is very much linked to Superman in the sense that they were both sent by their parents on a perilous journey by themselves as infants with the idea that this would give them a better life. For Moses, it was because Pharaoh was killing off Jewish babies, or, the slaves, when Jews were slaves in Egypt. For Superman, it's because he was rocketed away from a planet that was going to blow up. But the whole Moses in the basket, Superman in the rocket, you could see the connection there. And yes, I know the whole thing about, Moses and most of that actually being based on a Babylonian text, but that's a whole other YouTube for another day. The point is when looking at biblical metaphors for Superman, of course, you can absolutely see him as a Jesus savior figure, but with Moses as a character who is sent away by his parents in order to give him a better life in a, the basket would be the, ancient version of a rocket ship. The Nile is the ancient version of, being shot out through outer space. You can clearly see the connection between the story and the visual metaphors. It's just updated to make it sci-fi. So another interesting aspect is looking at Superman's real name, Kal-El, which is an extremely Hebrewic name. It has, the hard K, L, being Superman's last name, is actually a very used a lot in Hebrew. Superman being from the house of El.
Come to me, son of Jor-El! Kneel before Zod!
So Jor-El, Superman's father, and Laura, his mother, very much the connection is there. Like if you look at the different names that are used for God in what's called the Old Testament, or for Jews, just the Bible or the Tanakh, there's a lot of different names, and names such as, El Gibor, mighty God, or in this case, Kal-El means swift God. So it not only are there Hebrewic sounds, but direct translations. So the idea of his name being changed to Clark Kent is very much a parallel to Jews coming over to Ellis Island from Europe. And I can tell you personally, a personal story is my great-grandfather who came through Ellis Island as a Jew. His name was Etchen, but this was hard for the guards to pronounce, or the processing people. So they just changed his name to Edison. This happened to a lot of Jewish immigrants coming over, having their name changed. So then you can see Kal-El, Clark Kent. Now, the whole secret identity thing and Clark Kent existing as a different version, a secret identity. I mean, obviously, secret identity started with the Scarlet Pimpernel. That was one of the first times that was used in literature, but they've become a major trope in all comic books. And usually it's because the superhero wants to protect their loved ones. That's why they take on a secret identity. So, because if the supervillain found out who they were, they could attack their friends and family. I want to quote really quick from Danny Fingerruth's book, not Darkhawk, although I love Danny Fingerruth because he created Darkhawk, one of my favorite superheroes, but he wrote a book called Disguised as Clark Kent, exploring the Jewish origins and creation of the superhero. So I'm quoting here from his book. For the Jewish immigrant families, like those from which Siegel and Schuster came from, the dual identity was more than a convenience. When your history tells you that you can be murdered because of who your parents happen to be, the freedom provided by being able to blend into mainstream culture is essential to survival. Superman and his dual identity took what could have been seen as an act of cowardice, or at best caution, and transformed it into a virtue beyond cleverness. And that really sums it up very well. The idea that the hidden identity, or secret identity, which was very much popularized by Superman, while he's not a practicing Jew, you could see how, yes, in the real world, there was a danger for Jews in, actually going back centuries. And that's even where the Jewish idea of the golem comes from, which could be seen as an original superhero, much like Superman. So the idea of a protector for the Jewish people, yeah, absolutely, something they were looking for. And it makes sense that Schuster and Siegel would draw on this when creating Superman. And whatever version of Superman happens to be, your go-to version, and there's obviously been many, what's really important is to know that Superman versus Batman was still better than Twilight. All right, wishing all of you very happy holidays. I hope you found this video informative, maybe a little humorous, but yeah, interesting nonetheless. There's a lot more, and I do recommend Danny Fingeruth's book very much if you'd like to learn more about the subject. Happy holidays, and see you guys in the next video.